Welcome to The Good Life. Thank you for stopping by. I'm Patrick Harney, and today I have a very good episode. But before I get into it, first I want to let you know, as always, you can listen to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and make sure to subscribe, leave a review, like, share, comment. Helps me out, I really appreciate it. So today I have a gentleman by the name of Rob Parks. He's a great guy. He's an actor, and he's just cool to talk to. And let's just dive in. I've said enough. I've said my spiel. Let's just get into it. Mr. Rob Parks.
Yeah, man.
How are you, dude?
I'm good, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. And I think this is the first time that we've actually been able to talk, like, I guess, kind of face to face, but.
Yep. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. A lot of passing ships in the night.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Now you are a fellow Hazlitt grad.
Yep. Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I went to Hazlitt High School here in Michigan, and Rob went to school with. You graduated what year?
2002. Yeah.
Okay,
so
okay.
Allison.
Yes. Yep. So Allison, which is my sister. So now I had read that on your IMDb page, I had read that you grew up in Grand Rapids.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you come here?
So my mom got a graduate degree at Michigan State in 96. So starting middle school, moved from Grand Rapids, but was born and then we were in Mississippi for a year. We were doing some stuff with Habitat for Humanity, and then back to Grand Rapids and then to Hazlitt until college. So sixth grade on. Yep. Man,
middle school coming in. Changing schools in middle school. That's the worst years of everyone's lives.
Yeah. I mean, let alone changing class, but it was kind of a culture shock for me.
Yeah. For sure.
In hindsight, it was a great place to land, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what shows were you involved with at Hazlitt?
Pirates of Penzance, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Nice.
The Sound of Music. And was that it? How many was that?
That was 3.
3?
Yeah. Did you do Oklahoma?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, because who did you play in Joseph?
Asher. One of the brothers.
Yes, nice.
Yep.
Because I did Joseph my sophomore year, and I was Judah.
Okay, yeah.
So I had the Benjamin Calypso song, and I was moonwalking all over the stage.
Man. That was so much fun.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Yep.
So at what point? Because for those of you who also don't know, this man here was involved in Lion King.
Yeah.
You were in the Lion King, man.
Yeah, that was a good gig,
dude.
Yep.
Like, that's huge.
Yeah, this is really huge.
And that's a national tour. Like, I mean, you were. So at what point did you get involved with that, and how did that come about?
Right after graduating, so from Hazlitt to Michigan State, and was there like halfway between vocal performance and music education, but it was only opera stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day after graduation, moved to New York and was there and did like a lot of commercial print stuff but was started auditioning for film and TV stuff. That was kind of the long goal anyway, sort of near the end of college. And then I got to New York, and my agent at the time was like, you're a singer, right? And, because it had been only commercial stuff and like films and TV stuff. I was like, yeah, that's what I studied and whatever. He's like, I think we should get you in front of some of these casting directors, like in the city and whatever. I was like, great. That would be great.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about Broadway stuff other than high school, but, choir and stuff at Hazlitt was a pretty big deal. And obviously I studied it, but So I got some coaching because it was all classical voice until that time. So I did not really sound like what I looked like at the time. You know, In the Heights was really huge at that time and whatever. So I came in singing these like Italian arias and stuff, and it just didn't didn't really like it didn't line up. So I had to get some coaching, and then and then my agent, I was like, yeah, let's get you in front of some of these people. And it was not long after that. I mean, it was maybe once we sort of decided to go that route, it was maybe like 3 weeks before I had my first Lion King call. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was,
That's quick.
right away. Yeah, it was, yeah.
That does great, not happen. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really, but he was serious about like, let's get you in front of these people. And saw a bunch of musical theater casting directors like right out of the gate. And then just, there was callbacks, things like 7 rounds of Lion King auditions. So there was some other stuff that I was having to turn down but like, we're just kind of hoping that this big fish might pan out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't at first.
Really?
Yep.
So what happened with that?
It had gotten down to, there were 4 of us. There were 4 of us at that final call after all of the movement and all that kind of stuff. And I think 2 of them had already been in the show. One was in the show on the tour covering. Another was in Vegas covering. And then there was another guy, Adam, who it was like a Broadway. I mean, he's the original Aladdin and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he was, and he had been in for the show a bunch of times. And then it was me and my Italian arias and like my music ed degree or whatever. So by the time it got down to that point, I was like, man, this is awesome. And the feedback that I got, and maybe they were just being generous, but the feedback that I got was like, you were great. They just don't know who you are at all. You have like this ed degree and like these opera credits, but we don't really know what your deal is. So we're going to pass. That went to Adam. Somebody else left the show maybe 3 weeks later, and my agent called and my manager at the time called and just said, hey, somebody left and they want to offer you a contract to go in and cover, just being in the ensemble and covering Simba and whatever. So like, pack your bags, you're gonna go on the road. And I was like, awesome, let's do it. It was awesome. Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Yeah,
really, really cool. Yeah.
So when something like that happens, do you have that moment where you're like, okay, I'm awake, I'm breathing, right?
Definitely.
And so at that point, and it's funny that you said you were great, that they told you were great, but they don't know who you are.
Yep.
Dude, that stuff happens so much.
Yeah. I mean, my sort of lens with all of that anyway, I had 2 things. One, there's just enough gigs to go around. Like everybody can eat. Obviously there are projects and stuff that you want to work on where you're like, man, I really want that. And that would have been cool. I never would have seen myself in that role. Anyway, the other thing is there's always enough to eat, but also, oh man, I lost my train of thought. I wanted to remember that. Oh, because I was around like the company that I was in during that time. Once I realized, there were 4 of us at that final call with Julie Taymor, who created the show. And once I sort of, you get to talking to the other guys, because that first audition, there was like 200 identical Rob Parkses at that. All these dudes looked exactly the same. And so you just realize, and then as it started to kind of cut down, you kind of get down and like, oh, hey man, congrats. Like what's happening with you? And it's like, oh, I'm actually in New York because the auditions were happening there, but I'm actually on a break from the tour. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, I've been in the show for X amount. Same with the guy from Vegas. It's like, oh, I've already been in the show and whatever. I'm like, what about this dude? And he was already in like 2 or 3 Broadway shows at the other time. So at that point I was like, good, because it's all, you got to plant seeds and whatever. I'd never been in front of those casting, people before, never been in front of Disney producers, any of that kind of stuff. So by the time it got down to that, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm glad we made it this far. And my reps were feeling the same way. So it's like, awesome, let's take that momentum and just run with it. So I was right back into catering and tending bar and all that kind of stuff in the city. And they just, called back and I was like, yep, that's a bummer. But I mean, when they let me know that it was a go, obviously it was awesome, but I just tried to keep it real. Like, how cool is it that we made it this far? I have no credits that anybody would care about. And you know, that was a win already. So I was bummed because you start looking up like, what do you make if you're, you know, like what does a regional production of whatever, what does a Broadway tour make and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah. And then, you know, when you don't get that, you're like, all right, back to it. I never had that gig to begin with. So this is it. Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing I think it's important to keep in mind is, you know, appreciating the process as you go through it.
Yep.
Not just whatever the outcome is. It's one of those things where, you know, it's important to appreciate the process, because I know, like, when I first started auditioning, I started thinking, you know, I have to get this role, right? I got to nail this.
Yep.
I'll be fine, right? I'll just go in there, I'll just do my thing and it'll be good, right?
Yep.
And then when you don't get it, then you start to think, oh, okay, well, how come I didn't get it? Well, what did I do that was wrong?
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily that. I mean, they probably had their decision made the second I walked in the room. They're
Totally.
like, yep, nope, he doesn't fit it, but we'll give him the time of day. You know?
Or I mean, the other thing that I've learned too is that they have so many projects going at one time, right? This is only maybe 4 hours out of one day of them casting a ton of projects. So they may, you know, like, hey, can we hear you sing a little bit of this other thing? Or, hey, can we have you read a little bit of this other role or whatever?
Yeah.
They're not even considering you for that role. The other role that they're having you, they remember that they also need a villain for this other thing and once you realize, like, you know, oh, they already cast the female lead and she's 6'7". So we got to go with a dude who's like 6'10", just so it looks right. You're like, and that may be stuff that you'll never know about, but to try to, you know, beat yourself up about all of those variables that you can't control, like, that's for the birds, man. That it gets tough, especially when you carry that weight out of the room. You know, it's like,
exactly.
I gave 100% of the 89% that I was working with in that room because my allergies or whatever, man. Like, it's, you know, there's always stuff happening. I'm stressed, so I forgot a word. That's it. I'm either going to be the dude or not, but it's not for not trying or not caring. I gave 100% of whatever amount I was working with. That lesson sort of, I'll admit, that lesson came more after doing so many shows in Lion King. Like, once you're doing 8 shows a week, you remember that people are paying so much money to, you know, they buy their tickets way in advance. You got to try to come with 100% of whatever you're working with, knowing, all right, I've been on the road for a year and a half now, still doing 8 shows a week, trying to keep your body to get injuries and stuff. But tomorrow, brand new people are going to come and see the show. I'm going to give 100% of the 67% I'm working with right now. So it won't be for not trying. It's just, I'm not used to this Denver elevation quite yet or whatever, you know? Yeah, man. It's all the factors, you know? Yeah.
That's a really good way to put that, though. I'm going to give 100% of the 80% that I have to give. That's a really good way of putting that. I've never heard
it. I think, it just kind of keeps, for me, it just sort of helps me keep myself accountable to whatever, you know, because then you can you don't really get to BS yourself with that, right? It's like, did you, you know, you can make excuses, but did you give 100% in whatever you were working with, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think about that a lot. Yeah.
So doing 8 shows a week, I mean, you were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were Simba.
So I covered that role for a long time, and there were long stretches of time, but I never took a Simba contract. And some of that has to do with, like, you know, logistics of what they need covered in the show. So, Rob, we want to have you be Simba for 3 months out here, you know, whatever, which is great. However, I want to make sure that I am able to go back to my ensemble contract. I want to make sure that I can still cover these, because I covered a few other principals and other roles and stuff in the show. I was an ed cover in the show. So, you know, and so if somebody got injured, then they would need you to fill in, you know, you're covering a few different things in the show. And I kind of liked being able to do that. Also, I met my wife in the show, you know, like she came and joined. So there was something about just being able to goof around backstage and whatever throughout the show once she joined, and whatever, that was also appealing. But I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of times that I did Simba or Ed over the course of my time there, but I always kept my ensemble contract. That's a steady gig. It's, at least at the time, I don't know if it's changed now, but at the time, those are ongoing contracts. The principal contracts are renewable. So that's a little Broadway thing that I didn't recognize until, sometimes you get people that are like, I'm gunning for that. I was gunning for trying to save for, a house, or at least trying to have it be as much on my timeline as I could. Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy to think about, though, to have to be able to cover multiple roles in a show of that size. I mean, I've seen that show twice. I saw it here at the Wharton Center, and I also saw it in New York. That's a massive show.
Yeah.
And to be able to cover multiple areas, multiple different roles in the show, like, to me, that would be harder than just playing Simba fully, or whomever.
Yeah, I mean, the swings, you're familiar with this term, like swing, people that are swings in the show, man. Those are beasts, man, because they really, like, especially when they're really on it, because they're, again, at the drop of a hat, you got to fill in. And sometimes they also cover principal roles, but like in the ensemble, if you're a swing, in our show, for instance, we had 2 male singer swings, 2 female singer swings, 2 dancer swings, 2 dancer swings. And anytime something would happen, so like Ed would go down, or Simba would get injured. Rob, we need you to be Simba. So-and-so's got to be Rob. And like, that would be for the evening show. For the matinee, they might've been the dude right next to Rob, right? Like I was 38, track 37. They might've had to been, but you got to be 4 feet over and enter, like all the choreography is a mirror image of, it's a lot, man. And there would be time, even me covering Simba, there'd be times where you're on stage, like, all right, you look down at your costume to remember like what's happening, because the audience looks the same, but Simba and Ed are in some of the same scenes together. So they're, antagonizing Simba. And here I'm supposed to be on the top of Pride Rock, whatever. And you want to blurt out like, like some Ed, and like Simba, like Ed doesn't get to go Scar or whatever. He doesn't talk. So just that kind of stuff. And there were times, especially when you get tired or whatever, you're like, all right, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And there've been times right in the middle of the show, stuff has happened where somebody will get injured in the middle of the show, and they'll bring the curtain in. Rob, we need you to come to the stage right now. And that's it. The makeup artist paint you on stage. All the costumes get changed out. They bring my Simba mask, all of that in the middle of the show. And then the curtain will come down and it's like, all right, give me a second. Where are we in the show? And then, are you good? I'm good. And then the curtain comes up, and for the rest of the show, you're,
That blows my mind.
Yeah, man. And again, that's a good gig, but that was something that you got to sort of respect about that. That was a newfound respect that I had for that level of, production and stuff like that, and they pay you for it.
Well, and it's not like, for you too. I mean, it's not like you started with some small show off Broadway and you slowly worked your way up to, I mean, you went from basically ground zero to freaking Lion King. Like, that's a big jump. And so when you say you found that newfound respect for those actors and what they do, I mean, that's a huge shock. At least it would be to me. That'd be a huge shock to my system. Yeah. Of like, whoa, like this is a lot coming at me right now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's awesome, man. I mean, and to do, you said you were on tour for, you said about a year and a half.
I was on tour for 7 years total. It's a long time.
So you do 8 shows a week.
Yeah. I mean, outside of injuries, because that's another real factor. I had shoulder surgery from the show. I broke my hand in the middle of the show once. And so outside of that, you're pretty much 8 shows a week, unless you're taking a medical leave or some sort of, vacation time. So it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot, man. It really is. And it's not like the show takes a break and then, you know, goes back. So there's an adjustment period for sure, you know, versus like what I had done in either high school or in college. You spend all this time with rehearsal and all that, and then you have 2 weekends where you do these big, you know, opera productions or whatever, that kind of thing. It's just a different beast when you're dealing with time zone and elevation, humidity, all of that, you know, like that's a lot of, you know, it's a lot. And so it was definitely a learning period where you're like, all right, I did 8, you know, and like, and then you just realize you have Monday off, and then Tuesday, that's it. And then 2 shows Saturday, 2 shows Sunday. All right, I did 16, 24. You're like, man, this is, you know, man. And then that adds up. Yeah.
And then you're 80 shows later.
Yeah. I mean, like
100
you know,
shows later.
Thousands. Yeah, man. It's a lot. Yeah.
Well, that's good, man. So when did you move out to LA?
So the end of 2000, my wife and I knew we wanted to start a family. And so out on the road, and she was a dancer in the show. And on the road, we, you know, were like, I think we could be cool with, you know, trying to get an exit plan and leaving, and then going to LA, possibly my going back into the camera stuff. And so that's what we tried to do. And we got pregnant immediately. It was like, just like that. So we're like, all right, that started that clock. And we came at the end of November of 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how was that transition for you? Because at that point, I mean, when you're spending 7 years basically on the road to boom, now you're in, I mean, you're where you need to be, but you're stationary somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, was that a huge shock for you?
Yes. That was a shock in a bunch of, like, in a lot of different ways. Cause you're exactly right. All that moving and the momentum and just being used to like not acquiring and like carrying a bunch of stuff with you just because you're on the road. We drove the tour, but just, you know, you're in one place like, oh, we got to get furniture. Like there's a lot of stuff. Then you realize also, like, we were in LA for 2 months at one point, but it was cool because we got to see all of our friends that were sort of in the Southwest, Arizona or whatever, you know, people would come from the show, San Diego. But when you land in LA, it's like, we're here now for however long. We're not going to see our parents in Michigan. We're not going to, you know, hey, I'm going to be in Chicago. You guys should come down for whatever the show is going to be in Miami. Like, come fly down and see us or whatever. Now you're out here. There's no community, and you know, until you build it. And then we had a baby like 5 weeks later. So it was like, you know, we closed on our house and then had a baby, and it was a lot, man. It was a lot. And just, you know, I tried to hop into class right away. I'm all about that. Just trying to hop in and see what can I do. I changed my phone number. Like, I'm not a 517 or a 616 guy anymore. Like I was 310 immediately to try and look West Coast, you know, just to try to like look as local as possible so that, you know, to minimize any snags that might be there. But that was definitely a shock and slow going. New York is a little different than LA in that regard. You know, it's slower moving in general. You're in your car a lot. So, you know, it can be lonely in a weird way out here in LA. And so it really takes effort to try to like find community and get like a support system out here, but you just build it. And now it's great.
Yeah. I mean, I've been out to LA a couple times, just for a couple trips. And yeah, it was, cause I've also been in New York, and it was very different in the sense of like, when I was out in LA, it was very strange because the people that I was with, the friends I was staying with, it seemed like everybody had so much to do, and it seemed like they got so much done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it looked like they were doing nothing at all. It was the weirdest thing. Like, I'd get up and they're just sitting on the couch on their laptop for hours.
Yep.
And then they disappear for a couple hours and come back. Yeah, I had a couple auditions I went to today, and I went into the grocery store. Well, I'm like, when did you do any of that? Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, but it is, I mean, LA is a different beast from New York. And I mean, New York is, I mean, it's like everybody's on speed the whole time, you know. I mean, it's
but I mean, I think there's something to that, you know. I think there's something that I appreciated and appreciate about New York. And I think to a degree, I mean, it's all relative, but to a degree, I sort of try. It helps that my wife is a New Yorker, but you try to sort of hold on to that type of energy, especially if you're not clocking in and clocking out at a gig somewhere. You know, like if you're not going and working at Lowe's or whatever to, you know, it's like if nobody's pushing you. And I think when you step on the MTA, you see 1,000 other people. You know, when you step on the train in New York, there's 900 other people that are like, get out of my way, I'm doing shit today. And you're like, cool. You know, and it makes you, am I doing stuff today or not? You know, and when you're out here, not like people aren't doing stuff, but you guys want to go to the beach? It's like, you know, a whole week of beach days can go by and you're like, you know, so I try to sort of, you know, and then you realize that life is stressful and we only get to do it once and all that. So you gotta, you know, you do need to make time for that kind of stuff, but I'm not clocking in and clocking out anywhere. I got to try to, you know, I got to try to make it happen. Again, as soon as the day I left Lion King, I was an unemployed actor. No confusion. Yeah. It's like both of us, you know, we're just like, all right, now we're unemployed and we have a house and a baby. So what's up?
Man, that's a lot of stress, but hey, you know, you're making it happen. And, did you find that, because I know you've done some TV spots, you've done some commercials, you've done some shows and some films. Was that transition, was it hard for you to go from, Broadway, being on such a big show like that, because theater's very different. Was that a hard transition for you to go from that over to film, television, all that stuff, or did that help you transition to that?
So it helped, and there was definitely a learning curve. It's not the same beast at all. So I, again, you know, hopping into class, hopped into some on-camera stuff because way more comfortable in front of 5,000 people at that point than having like one huge camera lens like right in your face or whatever, right? And it's just a different thing, and it's not just about like you just go small. Everything's the same, but go small. There's different things to sort of try and maximize for the medium, and I think that was, so that was helpful to try to learn some of those specifics. What was really helpful though, coming from the stage, is, you know, man, there's so many nights of, that's it, the show's going, this gigantic set piece just broke, so that's it, now Pride Rock is not going anywhere. It's like right here in the middle of it, and that's it. And there's 3,000 people that saw your shoe just come off. What are you gonna do now? Like what's happening? And I think when you or just me, like, Rob, we need you to be Simba at the last second, or, hey, this is what we're going to do. Hey, can you cover this tonight because so-and-so, this is what's happening and everybody's sick right now or whatever. When you get enough of that, it sort of beats the nerves out of you, you know, like any kind of nerves or kind of anxious where you're just like, this is the task at hand. This is what I'm doing. And so I try and take that on to any productions that I'm on now, where it's like, I didn't hire me for this gig, like Lion King. I didn't hire me. I'm just going to do my best now that I'm here. And if you have enough at-bats of trying to make the best of the rock breaking and your shoe falling off, I broke my hand and just finished the show with a broken hand, just because the stakes are high like that. Yep. And I mean, you know, to a degree, right? Yeah. There's a lot of adrenaline and possibly stupidity. But yeah, so I try to take that into the commercial sets that I'm on also, or like any of the film TV sets that I'm on, where it's like, I still want to try to knock this out in one go, you know, or like, tell me what you need. I'm going to try to get as close as I can right out of the gate. And then it's nice that we can have takes for stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
Well, and it gives you the ability to have that confidence that, okay, well, I broke my hand in Lion King and still finished the show while this and this happened at the same time. This is nothing, you know. Yeah. It allows you to have that mindset. Whereas, rather than coming to set, obviously you're nervous in terms of more of excitement, but
Yeah.
being nervous, like, oh, can I do this? And you start getting that like
Yep.
self-doubt thing. That
Yep.
doesn't happen when you have gone through all that.
Yeah, man. I think that that's something that, again, just coming from Hazlitt or coming from Michigan, I had leads in the high school stuff and
Mhm.
leads in the opera stuff at Michigan State. But you talk about moving to New York and then landing, like you said, in this monster show. That gives you a bit of confidence where you're like, all right, cool. I came from this place, was here, didn't know much, but tried to figure it out. Rob, you need to get some coaching because you don't look like how you sound or whatever. You got to get in the room, you got to plant seeds and try to just cultivate those. Coming to LA, having almost no credits again when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing, man. What do you need to do? You need to hop into class. You need to try to figure out what the lay of the land is out here. However, you did go from Michigan to New York and did that. Maybe you can come from the tour to LA and, make a splash in the same way. So I just sort of, hold on to that. And it certainly does help in terms of, trying to hold on to confidence or, however you want to say that. Yeah, it's definitely helpful or productive.
Yeah, for sure. Did you find did that credit of Lion King and any of the other shows that you'd been a part of, did that help you land other, like any film jobs or any commercial jobs?
I mean, I think so.
You think?
I mean, I would like to think so because you're just hard pressed to, I would imagine so. You're hard pressed to find anybody who hasn't at least heard of the Lion King, let alone at that point probably haven't seen the show or certainly is familiar. It's very part of pop culture or whatever. So I imagine that it's never been bad news. However, it's like, awesome, you were on the stage. What can you do with, this isn't the stage. And that's where I'm like, yep, absolutely. So, I mean, it's certainly helped. I try not to just hold on to that. It was a good gig. I'm certainly not afraid of letting people know, like, yeah, I was part of that thing. Oh, good. We can rely on this dude, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
But, it ultimately comes down to whether or not the female lead is 6'7" or whatever. It's like, that's it, man. I'm just trying my best out here, just like everybody else. Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So how have you been able to keep a focus on like positivity and keeping that going for yourself as you move through all these different kind of chapters of your life? How do you keep that positive mindset of like, nope, I'm going to keep moving forward. I got this obstacle in front of me, or I got this awesome opportunity in front of me, so I'm going to hit it.
Yeah.
How do you keep that going for yourself?
I think a lot of that is, it's sort of just like reminding yourself, kind of like what we were just talking about. It's reminding yourself, like, this is where I'm from, and this is what we were able to do. What do I need to do within these circumstances? And like, stuff will work out. You're not going to book every room you walk into. You're not going to book everything that, whatever, but that's just part of it. There is enough food for everybody to eat. One major thing for me now is just having kids, man. Like, I have 2 boys and my mom lives out here now. And so like, that's really great, to have my wife who remembers what the experience was of being in Lion King. So she gets it from a performer perspective, even though she's not doing that anymore. She was ready to be done with it. And so for me, still doing it, if I do come back from something where it's like, I gave 100% of 13% today, like that, and that happens, but I still did it. She kind of knows how to, pick, it's all good. She knows from the inside what that's about. And my mom is my mom, and my boys could care less. So like, which is awesome. And I think with that, I'm able to just sort of, and at the same time, I'm still an unemployed actor, right? Like, I was on a commercial set 2 days ago. I was employed, but like today I got time for this. I'm unemployed today. So, and my boys, so that's just something where it's like, all right, you gotta keep it going, and I think that's just what I try to hold on to, is that mindset of like, everybody here gets it. Everybody is supportive. Yeah. There is enough food, and at the end of the day, these people that are here will sort of hold me up if I'm not feeling it for whatever reason. But it's rare, man. And I know the career, I know this career path now, and if and when it's ever time for me to pivot or whatever, great. Like it's, yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, man.
You have a great outlook on things. Seriously.
Thanks, man.
It's a very inspiring mindset to be able to listen to and hear, I mean, as myself, I mean, I'm also an actor, and so I understand a lot of the things that you're talking about, but a lot of people might not, and they might look at that and go, man, but I mean, geez, to say that one day, 2 days ago you're employed, today you're unemployed, like I understand how that feels, but a lot of people would look at it and go, well, are you crazy? Like that's insane, but that's how it is.
And that's exactly right. And the answer might just be like, yeah, but man, when you do book, and when you book something that's fun to work on, or you book and you already know the team that you're working with and stuff like that, those days at work make the, whatever, but they make the times that you're not on set worth it. It's like, it's a lot of like catering in the Hamptons and stuff before Lion King, and then that like book, but you're not always waiting on that unicorn. Now it's like, I might go and be on set for, Toyota for 2 days, but right after that, I'm unemployed, but it's kind of awesome because I know I'll have a little bit more time to hang out with my boys today. Yeah. But just remember, don't string together too many beach days, right? So it's like all that, it's just like all that. Yeah, it's all that balance, and then you just got to be realistic with all of the other sort of happenings in life. Are we sustainable? And that's just something that we talk about a lot. Is this good? And we have side gigs, and we have we have Airbnb and all of that, but like it's just it's a constant measuring, which I think at this point in my life or in the game, I prefer that to clocking in and clocking out. That may change. That sometimes changes by the day, but on the whole, I much rather be doing this and hopping into other stuff. I like auditioning. I like preparing stuff. I like being in class, and I certainly like being on set or on the stage or whatever. So yeah, man. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like either like writing, directing, producing, or have you done any of that stuff?
Not too much. I've written some things, but nothing. I mean, they're mostly like just shorts that I would want to see friends, doing, or it's just stuff like that where it's like, oh man, I didn't know so-and-so was like a black belt and whatever. So it's like, let's write, but it's like a vignette or something, but, so I haven't really gotten in too much, with that outside of the performance aspect of it. I think maybe I would, but I do think a lot of that sort of creative time and energy gets eaten up when we just want to hang out with the family. It's like when I would be sort of holed up trying to work on some sort of script or something, I'd rather just be like throwing those boys around on the, like just trying to wrestle or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, not a ton, but at some point in time, I'm certainly open to it. I have much more respect once I've seen sort of from the back end of things, people that write and don't have gigs, people that are writing for big gigs, network gigs, and how that's different from writing indies and stuff like that. But yeah, not for me right now. For right now, they're 4 and almost 2 years old, so that's a lot of that extra brain energy is like, get off of that. Like how are we gonna make today cooler than yesterday when we still have to be 6 feet away from humans and like all of that,
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's a full-time job on itself. Well, hey man, I mean, but before I end every show, I always like to do that segment called the goods, and kind of pick your brain on a few things and see what you might think about these. Okay, what is your favorite movie of all time and why? I know it's a real deep question,
Yeah, okay, so I think my favorite movie of all time is probably Schindler's List.
Oh, wow.
And I think that was probably the first time. Did you have to watch that in school? Did you have to watch that like in middle school or?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember that it also came out around that time. And anyway, that was sort of the first time that I was like, oh man, this medium is so important. I mean, just the whole production of it, recognizing that this was literally shot in the 90s and it looked like the 40s.
Yeah.
And you just sort of realizing it from that perspective, just the scope and all of that. That was sort of the first, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what movies can do. So that holds and you're telling a very important piece of history via this medium. And I just think that that's like super important. So I would like to say a much sexier whatever answer, but I just think, man, I just think the medium is too important. It was very significant for me to I mean, all the soundtrack, Itzhak Perlman, and this, like, everything, man. John Williams on that. It's just like, this is very, very important. Anyway, sorry, that was supposed to be a hot take.
No.
List,
You're good, man. You're good.
Yeah.
No, that's a great film.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have, I guess, maybe not prefer, I guess that's maybe not the best way to put it, but okay. Well, what do you have the most fun doing? Theater, film, or television? Whether it's commercial, a series, whatever.
Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because in general, you get to live with that environment for a bit, right? Like when you're on film, you're there for a day or, 2 days or whatever, and then that's it. So you kind of hope you get it in, but it's also like, hey, oh man, nice to meet you. Here's my entire history. Tell me your entire history or whatever. All right, bye. It's very summer. It feels summer camp sometimes. And I have good friends that I've met on sets from a long time ago that just for whatever reason, you're like, man, this dude and I clicked. But in theater, and I mean, I'm biased also because, like, again, I met my wife there, and, Lion King sort of changed a lot of stuff for me. But it's pretty fun when you have those little stage things, those little like winks and whatever when you're on, you goof around and traveling, whatever. So yeah, theater for me, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I also admittedly have more data in the theater world than I do in the film and TV stuff. It just is what it is, like a long time in that one gig.
Yeah. Did you have a good time doing Runaways?
Yeah, man. That gig was awesome. I mean, it was just cool. It was on the Paramount lot, and it was really fun. It's just always really cool to go in and see how a set is run, because they're all different in general. But it was cool. And I mean, it's cool to be like in the Marvel Disney thing on camera now. I mean, I had done something for ABC, before that, which is sort of Disney, but any of that superhero stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
That stuff's really fun. But everybody was super nice. Yeah.
Would you want to be a superhero? Like play in a superhero franchise and take on that character for years and years?
Come on, man. Yeah. What? Yeah, absolutely.
Because believe it or not, there have been actors who have come out and said, if they got offered a superhero role, they wouldn't take it.
That makes sense. And I get that. Again, I think an actor at my stage in the game, I would love to have, again, right? And again, this is being a dad of young children, like unemployed for a lot of the time. Yeah, man, I'm ready to ride out a longer term gig where I can sleep in my own bed more than 30 days at a time.
Yeah.
So like that's what, but in terms of like, yeah, man, I want to be a superhero. Yep.
That'd be sick, man.
I mean, at
That'd
least
cool.
for a bit. And then it'd be nice to like, all right. I mean, I never would have thought ever performing as Simba in The Lion King would be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like that happened. That was awesome. And then, I don't know that I would go back into another major Broadway show like that. Yeah. Maybe, but never say never, because it was awesome, but it's a long time, and time to move on. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And this may be controversial here.
Okay, here we go.
In and Out, overrated or underrated?
Underrated.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't do a ton of fast food, but you kind of have to do that out here.
Yeah.
And anytime anytime you go, the line is long, but it's usually worth it, man. You know, and you sort of recognize the staples, like, man, what's the deal? And then you realize there's like culture behind it or whatever. So yeah, there are fewer times where I feel more LA than when I'm having In and Out.
And when you order stuff that's like not on the menu, you know,
Yeah,
it's like,
feels super. Yeah, they talk real fast, and yeah, anytime
like
I'm on
you're
the
in a
phone
club.
anytime I'm on the phone with a friend or something, hold on one sec, I'm gonna order In and Out, and then I try to be as cool as I can. I'm gonna say it real fast and all that. Yeah, basically, Nick Sanchez just makes fun of me all the time. That's what that is. He's like, whatever, man. You're
Sanchez.
not LA. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yep.
He's like doing some crazy cool stuff.
Yeah, man. He's
with his art.
Absolutely, man. He's killing it in New York with both painting and drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So final question. What are some things, and I think I have an idea what you may say, but what are some things that keep you grounded and ways that you keep yourself centered?
So perspective is just huge, but actual ways, I go to the gym a lot. That's one. I go to the gym. I do have a sitting practice, so I try to meditate somewhat regularly. That gets interrupted depending on whatever's happening, but that's that. But I don't know, man. I'm reminded pretty much every day when I'm, whenever I leave and go to an audition, I'm stuck in traffic or whatever, it didn't go well, or it went super well, whatever. When I come home, the people here aren't around me because it went well, or whatever, or because it didn't go well. Like, it's just, this is sort of the main thing. And I'm just always aware of that. And again, with kids, you're so present all the time because they don't have, they just don't have that. So it's just great to be able to see that. That keeps me balanced and somewhat on an even keel. But the gym, all the regular things, the gym, trying to get more sleep, that could help. But I just never get to, when I book something, awesome. When I don't book something, awesome. That was, hopefully I just planted a good seed. I just try to, until you book it, and then I'm unemployed, and then it just starts all over again.
Comes right back at you.
Yep.
That's good, man. Well, that's good. Well, hey, I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you coming on. You're welcome anytime. I'd love to.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me, dude. This is good. It's good to see you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good to see you too, man. And hey, don't be a stranger. Anytime you want to reach out and talk and just kind of talk shop or whatever, or just talk life, I'm always around. So
same, man. That's a two-way street. I really appreciate it, dude.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Yep. Later.
All right, and that wraps up another episode of The Good Life. Thank you to Rob for being here, and make sure you go check out all of his stuff. Make sure you keep up on what he's doing. He's an incredibly talented human being, and overall, he's just a good guy, and he's a cool dude, So, thanks again for listening. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you next week.